Greetings, everyone. The topic of this presentation is the anatomy of the ear, the nature of hearing loss, and the methods of active listening. The main point here is that having healthy ears is a requirement for music production, songwriting, audio engineering, music composition, podcasting, video blogging, music performance, and so on. You've just got to have healthy ears to do any of these things well. So we're going to inspect the anatomy of the ear, discuss the problem of hearing loss, and introduce the methods of active listening. Having healthy ears is of enormous consequence to music technologists and audio engineers. If an engineer or a technologist has unhealthy ears, then he or she will produce worse sounding music than an otherwise equally qualified person with healthy ears. Many people who are not music technologists or audio engineers routinely ignore the health of their ears by subjecting themselves daily to punishing sound pressure levels. If done repeatedly over an extended period of time, listening at high volume will cause irreversible hearing damage. Things that are particularly problematic include listening to car stereos at maximum volume, attending rock concerts without earplugs, but especially using headphones on full blast. That seems to be the primary culprit this day and age. Hearing loss due to recklessly listening at high volumes is like vision loss due to recklessly staring at the sun. These two activities really are equivalent, and they are equivalently crazy. Don't stare at the sun. Don't listen at high volume. There really is an equivalency here. The difference, of course, is that listening at high volume does not hurt the same way that staring at the sun does. But the word hurt here is relative. If done consistently for a long period, listening at high volume will hurt. Ear-destroying sounds exist in the realm of music technology. The working environment for the average music technologist is daily bombarded with obscene sound pressure levels from amplifiers, speakers, drum sets, and many other ear-splitting sources. Wearing earplugs is a requirement for audio engineers. Anyone who runs live sound or produces recorded music will tell you that ear protection is a necessary part of the job. I'm never very far away from my earplugs. I always keep them in my pocket. You never know when you're going to need them. Because of the dangers inherent to listening, especially at high volume, it is important to understand some of the details about the sense of hearing. So the rest of this presentation will focus on some of those details by exploring the anatomy of the ear. And then we'll discuss the problem of hearing loss, and then we'll take a look at how to listen actively. The ear is the organ for hearing and equilibrium. So not only does it help you stand up straight, but it also provides you with your sense of hearing. We'll be looking at the sense portion, obviously. So I got this picture from my Merriam-Webster's Visual Dictionary, 2nd edition, the purpose of which is to show you that the ear is divided into 3 regions. We have the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. Okay, the outer ear consists of the part you can see, which is the pinna, or auricle, or just earlobe. This is not an anatomy and physiology class. So the outer ear consists of the pinna and the ear canal, which is this tube that you occasionally explore with the tip of a Q-tip. That's the outer ear, the pinna and the ear canal. The outer ear terminates with the tympanic membrane, or the eardrum, which is a thin sheath of skin that vibrates sympathetically with sound pressure waves. So begins the middle ear. So you have the tympanic membrane, or the eardrum, and then attached to the tympanic membrane is a series of tiny bones. So the first one, malleus, then there's incus, and then there's the stapes. And collectively, these tiny bones are known as the ossicles. The final ossicle, the stapes, is affixed directly to the sense organ called the cochlea, and this is the inner ear. The cochlea is a spiral-shaped cavity that contains fluid, several chambers, and a layer of tissue furnished with many thousands of hair cells. These hair cells are like your nose hairs. So inside this spiral-shaped cavity is a tube filled with a drop of sweat and many thousands of hair cells that are not too unlike your nose hairs. Now that inner ear organ, the cochlea, is very interesting. It is the sense organ. It is what converts the sound energy into something to be interpreted by your brain. Now there are thousands of hair-like projections inside the chamber of the cochlea, and affixed to each one of those hair-like projections is a further hair-like projection known as a stereocilia. So think of hair cells having extra hair cells. And these extra hair cells are very tiny. This is a close-up of a stereocilia. And this is the actual nerve ending. The stereocilia are what respond to the vibrational energy swishing along inside your cochlea and convert that into nerve impulses to be sent to the brain via the auditory nerve and experienced by the listener as sound. In summary, the outer ear collects and focuses the sound into the middle ear, which is the eardrum, which shakes back and forth and shoves these tiny bones back and forth, the ossicles. The final tiny bone is affixed directly to the cochlea of the inner ear. The cochlea is a tube with a layer of skin furnished with hair cells, containing further hair cells called stereocilia, which convert the vibrational energy into nerve impulses to be sent along the auditory nerve and interpreted by your brain. Every part of that is amazing. Your sense of hearing is certainly something to preserve. Now, what often happens is sensory neural hearing loss, which is hearing loss caused by the degradation of hair cells within the cochlea. It's due to prolonged exposure to high sound pressure levels. The loss of hearing usually occurs slowly and over extended periods, so it is not too easy to notice the degradation. But prolonged exposure to loud sounds or sudden exposure to very loud sounds, such as a gunshot or a jet engine, will damage hair cells or break them off completely. When this happens, there is swelling and inflammation in the epithelium inside the cochlea, which is the mucous membrane that's housing the hair cells. It becomes inflamed. The high sound pressure level can actually damage or break off some of the hair cells. The broken hair cells and the inflamed cochlear tissue conspire to ruin your hearing. Once those hair cells break off, they don't grow back. It's like losing a finger. Hearing loss itself then occurs at specific frequencies that correspond to the ones the hair cells were converting. So different volumes and different frequencies will be affected differently. A person may lose a lot of their high end, but not their low end. Oftentimes it's somewhere in the middle range. You might not be able to hear a quiet whisper or children's voices. Like I said, the body does not regenerate the hair cells in the cochlea, so losing them is very bad. You cannot close your ears the same way you can close your eyes, so there are only 3 ways to avoid damage to your body when you're in a loud environment. You can turn the sound down if you have access to the volume knob. You can put your earplugs in, which is often what I do. Or you can leave the area, like there's a fire. Just get out of there. You are doing damage to your body, so just run away. You will be the one that doesn't say what every 5 words when they're old. It sounds a little boring. The telltale sign that damage was done to your cochlea, to your sense of hearing, is temporary threshold shift, which is a condition of desensitization that occurs in the ear in response to high sound pressure levels. Blood flow to the hair cells within the cochlea decreases when the body is exposed to extremely loud sounds, and this lack of blood flow is what causes this curious state. It's your body's defense mechanism. Why are you doing this to me? Your body reacts with temporary threshold shift. It's usually also accompanied by tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears. If exposure to high sound pressure levels continues, then both threshold shift and tinnitus may become permanent. Maybe some of you have experienced this. Maybe you've had it come on and then go away. I unfortunately deal with tinnitus 24/7, 365. Since humans can hear an amazing range of soft and loud sounds, from pin drops to bomb blasts, it's wise to recognize what constitutes a dangerous sound and what does not. In the book Audio and Media, Stanley Alten categorizes the dangers by listing common sounds along with their attendant decibel sound pressure levels, or dBSPL range. So we consider 1 to 30 dBSPL, faint or very faint. This is insect noises at night, or a furnished living room, or a quiet office recording studio. Moderate loudness, which includes sounds from 30 to 60 dBSPL, results from the sound of an average office or from the average conversation. Loud sounds are 60 to 80 dBSPL and result from such things as an acoustic guitar from 1 foot away or a busy city street. Very loud sounds include heavy truck traffic, babies crying, the subway, and a trombone from 16 inches away. The 90 dBSPL, 100, very loud, starting to cause damage. You might get threshold shift at this point. At 120 dBSPL, hearing crosses over into the realm of feeling. So now not only can you hear something, you actually feel your sense organ operating, which is quite unpleasant. At 150 dBSPL, permanent damage is being done. These are deafening sounds. Jet engines, rockets being 12 inches below a cannon muzzle, asteroid impact. Now that we know the dangers and what to do about it, it's time to learn how to listen actively. Now, sound is a never-ending torrent that unfolds over time, stimulates experience and consciousness, and passes away without a trace. It's truly a remarkable phenomenon. To understand it requires active listening. To listen actively is to pay attention, moment to moment, to every detail of every sound before it evaporates and passes away. There are 2 kinds of active listening done by audio engineers: analytical listening and critical listening. Each technique has a purpose for music production. Analytical listening is paying attention to the form and content of sound. It means to define all that you hear. Those are birds. That's an orchestra. Those are Fender guitars. That's an old recording. Those singers are experts. Define all that you hear. That's analytical listening. To listen analytically also means to answer questions like, what instrument is that? Is the guitar sound coming from an amplifier or from a PA system? Is the singer out of tune? When was that recording made? In the 1950s? Does this microphone of mine work best for drum overheads, or should I borrow one from a friend? It is the duty of the audio engineer to listen analytically. If he or she is hooking up sound equipment, running cables, and operating a mixing console, then he or she must be defining every sound encountered. To listen in this way means to unpack the mystery of music. Every song, while listening analytically, will induce an inner dialogue like this. The band I'm listening to consists of 2 guitars, a bass guitar, and a drum set. The singer is a woman, an alto. This recording was made in the modern era using digital equipment. It sounds like the bass player is using a short scale instrument. For most sound engineers, the process of analysis, like the one I just detailed, happens automatically. If you become a sound engineer yourself, then listening to music ceases to be a passive affair. You are always busy thinking about and identifying all that you hear. Now, the other form of active listening is critical listening, which is listening to offer perspective and judgment upon that which you are listening to. Critical listening is listening for the purpose of constructing your opinion. Do you like what you are hearing? Yes or no? That's critical listening. This mental exercise demands a reference to what qualifies as objectively good. Attempting to make judgments about sound means having some criteria or prior reference of what is objectively good. And that means understanding what the merits and faults are of any given sound. The best place to start here is with commercially produced audio. It seems to be objectively good for most people. That is to say, the quality of audio that's been inhabiting the top 40 hit parade since the 1960s, that audio all sounds pretty amazing. And modern music production is truly amazing. So it's not a bad idea to begin your critical listening, or the listening for the purpose of constructing judgment, by comparing it to what has already been produced by the professionals. You produce something on your own and you're not sure if it's ready to be published or posted to your Bandcamp page, then take a listen to it back to back with a commercially produced piece of audio. How is it underperforming? What are its merits and faults? You can begin to do this by asking questions about the sounds you are hearing. Here's some sample questions. What is crucial to the quality of this musical performance? Should the singers be louder? Is this a guitar-based track? Would this song sound better if it was 10 beats per minute faster? Does having the whole band inside the control room make a net contribution to the quality of the mix? I would bet my life that the answer to that one is no. Keep the rest of the band out of the control room. Otherwise, they will all cry about not being able to hear themselves. Perhaps the most important question is this the right mic to use for this sound source? Should I mic this guitar with this large diaphragm condenser mic? From my point of view, that makes an excellent choice. So begin to ask questions. Begin to compare it to that which is considered objectively good, and you will be on your way to listening critically. So to listen analytically is to identify, and to listen critically is to pass judgment upon. Some manner of analytical and critical listening is happening at all moments when you're working as an audio engineer. Now, producers and engineers often share a common vernacular that they use to describe sound. For example, words like warm, live, and dull are used to give an account of frequency ranges for warm, acoustic spaces for live, and specific timbres for dull, or bright, or vivid. Many ways to describe specific timbres. But if you're working with the same person, it might be useful to have a common vernacular so that the producer/engineer team can muster an appropriate response, either using an equalizer or some other signal processor to correct for or achieve some specific sound. So if you have a dull sound, maybe it's not represented well in the upper mid-range and the treble really drops off. You might correct for that dull sound by using an equalizer. Or perhaps the dull sound is what you're looking for. Now, no standard glossary exists, so whatever you come up with has to be understood amongst the members of your production team. And different words can mean different things to different audio engineers. Onomatopoeia is also a useful language tool for production teams. Onomatopoeia is a figure of speech in which the act of speaking a word aloud imitates the object, animal, or action the word seeks to describe. For example, cymbals sizzle. The word sizzle imitates the sound that a cymbal makes. That's onomatopoeia. Guitar amps occasionally squawk like a bird. Microphones screech. PA systems buzz. Kick drums click. And sound equipment hisses. Bass amps bark. Onomatopoeia is defined by the American Heritage Dictionary as the formation or use of words that imitate the sounds associated with the objects or actions they refer to. Here's the basic thrust of the communication here. Musicians, recording engineers, and producers must keep their ears healthy and engage in active listening to make good music. Which is the point, right? Now, practical steps include buying and using earplugs, asking questions about sound, and developing a descriptive sound language. Now, when asked, what is the most important resource for audio engineers and music producers? You'll know that it's not a DAW, it's not some swanky set of microphones, or the best set of monitors in human history. It's having healthy ears. It's a requirement for music production. You will produce worse sounding music if your ears are unhealthy. So you must strive to protect them. Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Brian Jump.